Namaskar. Welcome in the live interactive teleconference of the MBA in Healthcare and Hospital Management. Today we are going to discuss about the material management in healthcare institutions. Healthcare institution means hospital, which is a very complex structure. We have a different kind of research institute. We have a different kind of diagnostic setup. And beside this, there are pharmaceutical. All are belongs to the healthcare institute. As you know that we have discussed some kind of strategic management and other aspect of the management, some principle of management in our before teleconference. This teleconference will be exclusively for the material management in a healthcare institution. So to discuss all this issue, we have Dr. A.K. Khokhar. Welcome you, sir, in this live interactive teleconference. Dr. Khokhar has a rich experience, more than 4 decades in the hospital and health management, and he is a visiting professor of IIHMR, and he has also written books on the strategic management and other part of the management. So this is a very big topic. So within 1 hour, some part maybe you can squeeze or maybe some part you can elaborate, describe. So sir, you can start the sessions. In the meantime, if any students has any questions, you are most welcome. The numbers are displayed on the screen. So sir, you can start the session.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to this session. As pointed out, this is covering up total material management within 1 hour may be difficult, but there will be many things which we will be skipping, but these are there for your use later on to read. So just straightway coming to the session objective is that we are able to understand the importance of supply chain management in all the health institutions as he has enumerated. Then what are the processes involved in management of right from raw materials to consumption and all, but we will be basically, our central thing will be drugs, right? Of course, the other things are equally important, but the principles for purchase and everything remain the same. Then, of course, our emphasis will be on to see that how we can really apply some of the scientific material management methods to optimize the use of resources, and especially, in this context, I would like to say, certain things you keep in mind is that material means money. Anything which we are buying, that means there is a transaction of money for that. And all of you know that money is one of the resources which is very, very, less with any institution. To what extent it may grow at every time, the resource will be a crunch. Resource crunch will be there, and money is the basic issue. So that will remain central at every point. Think of that whatever we are doing is in connection with optimizing the use of money. So with that, let's come to that as per government policy, and let me here say that whether it is the government institution or a private institution, funds constraints remain a problem for all institutions. It doesn't make a difference whether you are in a private setup or you are in a government setup. So how to best utilize the funds available for materials, that is our central issue. So as far as government is concerned, they have given some definition of goods which covers all type of articles, material, commodities, livestock, furniture, fixture, raw material, spare, instrument, machinery, and everything except books, publications, periodicals. That is the definition that has been given by our manual on materials management that is published by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. So, but the basic objectives as I was taking, first thing very important for us, whosoever is in those positions, is that we must realize it is ultimately public money. The money belongs to the public. Money is to be spent in a way which has a lot of transparency, it has fairness, it's systematic way, it's efficient, and ultimately we have to see that we are accountable to the public for any expenses. As coming to the materials in health institutions, and if we talk of the hospitals and maybe the bigger hospital and teaching hospitals, they consume almost 1/3 of the budget that is on materials. That materials may include, all drug dressing materials, that may be some equipments, there may be, the consumables, gases and other things. In one way or the other, 1/3 of the expenditure is on materials. And all of HR is one of the potent, tools to spend money. As far as money spending is concerned, most of the money goes to HR, but containing money or containing expenditure on HR is very, very difficult as compared to materials. So we have ultimately to look for cost containment where we can really think of the materials can be taken care of. So this is another way of thinking, is because issues as far as in materials in health institutions are concerned, there may be materials which are required like for any other organization, but there may be certain sensitivities of the materials, or we call as vital materials, which are a question of life and death.
Yeah, I think, sir, here students should not be confused. Like whenever we talk about the resources, like hospital has a different kind of resources, human resource, including different kind of consumable items and many other machines and other things. So in context to the material management, they should not be confused with the HR component, because human resource should not belong into that category. Isn't it like this?
No. What I was trying to tell the students was that when we talk of containing cost or reducing cost and all, it is very difficult in other departments because HR is the major expenditure area.
Yeah.
Whereas materials, which is containing 33% of the cost, let's say, but this is amenable to cost containment.
Yeah, it may be cut down or it may be high.
Because it all depends on how you can better use the same money in a better way. That will be our central theme of this. So the other side of thinking is that yes, the materials in hospitals are very important from the view of life and death issues. Then also we cannot wait many times in the hospital. So what we talk of 5 hours in material management, which you have also done, there are 5 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, which are given by different authors. But right quality, right quantity, right price, right vendor and right time, and all are the things which have to be taken care of. And efficiency of a material management will depend that how better use he can make of the same money available within that institution. So when we are talking in terms of material, we have to deal with planning of materials, what will be the requirements of the material, how we will go for purchasing them and ultimately distributing them, and so that way the operations are material planning and programming, purchasing and ultimately receiving them, testing them for that whether they are all right, putting them into our storage, maintaining all records and everything. There are things which are required for material handled so that there may not be expiry, there may not be wastage, spoilage and other things. And one of the important things which we will be discussing, which is in fact the central theme of scientific material management, wherein we are very particular to see that we don't compromise with the treatment part and the patients, but at the same time make the things available which are required, and thus we are spending the money in the right way. So then of course is the condemnation, disposal and other things which are there. So this is as I was talking, you are going to have the need assessment, you are going to procure the material, you are going to store it. That materials may be consumed, there may be waste consumption, disposal, or there may be something use collection and ultimately condemnation and other things, and or the waste that is generated. So there will be 2 ways of material way that it will be used. So at every point, one thing you remember when I talked of that material is money, material is also information also simultaneously. As the money flows, similarly the information flows from one step to another. So within this model cycle which we are given, we are thinking also simultaneously of preservation, proper accounting, avoiding expiries, avoiding pilferage, and maintaining the things in the right order. And then there are things like centralization or decentralization. You can think of most of the big organizations, they only go for centralized contracts, whereas for bigger equipments which are required at individual institutional level, decentralization may be better when we talk of capital equipments and all. So whatever we are talking are the functions of the material manager, right from planning of materials, how much are the materials required, what were the sanctions that will be taken for materials from the competent authorities, because to tell you, the competent authority is the person who ultimately sanctions, and the person who sanctions is generally within any organization one person. Like in our setups, you may be having a medical superintendent or a director or CEO, whatever designations you have given to the sanctioning authority, that will be there. Second thing which will be, they will be looking into, once you have those sanctions and all, from where you are going to purchase, right? That is the sources of purchase. Then once you are through that there are n number of sources from where we can purchase, then simultaneously you will have to look into what is the quantum of money that will be spent, right? So the quantum of money, if it is quantum of money is very small, then we have a different method of purchase. But if it is huge quantum of money, or it involves a lot of competition, there are a lot of suppliers, there is a lot of sophisticated machinery, or in terms of drugs, when you talk, there is huge consumption and whatnot. So then you will think of that you will go for certain type of rate contracts that will be ultimately out of tendering processes. So this is these are the functions that are central to what I have been talking. Then of course is the manager will also be required to look into various functions of his own department, right from the inspection of materials till they are issued to the people, and then of course whatever may be the waste, and finally he will also be thinking of how well I have done, right? That is means once you have completed all your functions of the supplying and everything for the total year, you may have a terminal evaluation, what we say the material measurement performance. You may use qualitative and quantitative methods, which some of them we will be talking in the end, and then accordingly you becoming a wiser what we had done in the past, and you have the vendor rating and other things with you. So let me come to what are the basic problems in our setups. I'll not go through all of them, but let me tell you some of the things which are very important. What happens many a times, first is that we are not able to see the real demand, forecasting as we call it, because we are not in a, if you are talking of automobile or engineering industries and all, you are very clear how many screws will be required, how many material will be required if you want to produce, let us say, 1 lakh vehicles, this and that. But this is not so in our case. In material, when you are talking in terms of health and drugs and dressing and other materials, we don't have that much visibility, though we have the methods from where we really try to go near to what can be accurate, but still that there is a limited visibility. Second is most of the time we regret, especially in government organization, the procedures are very long, right? And they are rigid, and many times not only within this health sector, they are equally applicable to many of the other sectors also, but we suffer many a times because the lost time may be very, very expensive to us. Then many times we may not get supplies. That is another thing. You are having a very well given rate contract, who has given you terms and conditions, but at the same time he regrets in the last moment that can you give me another 1 week, can you give me another 1 month, I am not able to supply, or I am able to part supply. All these are the issues which are there, and simultaneously pilferage, wastage, obsolescence, all these are the other issues which you will find a lot of there. And when you talk of equipment, a lot of issues to deal with the repair, maintenance and other things. So quality control, and what I would like to say is one thing very, very important is that as far as we are concerned, what we find in many places, and what for all of you are here is, people don't have the skills and knowledge that is required to manage the materials within the same money.
Yeah, I think in this context, a person need to be focused first, do the proper planning, keeping in mind of all the problems, shortcoming, because it is not like this, as you said, if there are 4 screw to be made in 1000 car, then there are 4000 screw. Then it is very easy. But when patient enter, how many IV drips he will consume and how many injection they will consume, it is very much variable. It is not a like 1 + 1 = 2 formula. So I think the person who is involved in this process need to be not only experienced, but in spite of having experience, he need to sit down and take some time to plan this constraint, keeping in mind, and then move ahead. I think that way it may be much better managed, because hospital, every component like medicines, equipments are essential. We cannot say that okay, we will run only with the medicine, equipments are not required, but we need everything. So I hope our doctors, when they practice those things, they will take care of those things. And
yes, very rightly said. Since we are into unknown world many a times, we are very one side is the information available with us from our records for the particular previous years and whatnot, what the stores provide. Then the other side is the trend of the things which are going to change, right? Which of course, as you said, we must involve the users, and that is being what is being done in most of the big institutions. They have a medical scrutiny committee or drug purchase committee and all. They bring to the table each and every document that is required as far as forecasting is concerned. At the same time, they start considering that which are the things which have been in the past, becoming non-moving or slow-moving, and what are the new entries which are going to be fast-moving. So it has to be totally integrated approach between the medical side and the financial side, and as well as the records which we have available with us, which give us the trends. And these days we have the softwares available for these things which can be, because of the machine learning, they try to give you result as near as possible. So in simple words, our problems and issues are different than what is in the other industries. So this is just to tell you that what I was talking to you, that you have a proposal, you have to get a sanction of a competent authority. Then there are the purchases. As I said, if it's a small purchase, as per the government rules, anything costing around 25,000 rupees only, you can go to the market and buy it without quotations. What do we mean? Without quotation means you have not to keep a record of everything, but you have to just record that you have inquired from the 2, 3 or 4 places, and this is the most competitive, or this is what serves us. So, but it doesn't mean that you can go to any single person every time and buy it. So you have to be in a competitive market, see that what are the rates available. So up to 25,000 we go for that. Purchase committee is up to 1 lakh as of now. That means you go to the market, and whenever any committee we are talking, take it for granted, within that there will always be a user department representative. There will always be one from accounts and one from the purchase department. The purchase and accounts are the people, because as I first said that it is money is the central theme for everything. So both of them are concerned about better utilization of funds. So purchase committees, you go to the market, go see that how are the things, make records of all of them, make a comparative statement. You have a checklist with you, what you need. Those persons who are supplying all the things as per your checklist, see that who is supplying you of the same quality, which is acceptable to you at the lowest rate, and you purchase it. Then there are the rate contracts. Now, like many of you who are working in government nowadays, you have a GEM, government e-market. This is a government rate contract which is to be followed by all the government organizations, though there are many things from the medical side which are not in that, but ultimate is that we want to include everything in GEM. It was earlier Director General of Supplies and Disposal, DGSND, which has now been wound up, and this is converted into GEM, and still we are having some of the problems with that, but as anything comes up, the problems will be there and they will be sorted over a period of time. In simple words, you create rate contracts by going for open tenders, or we call as advertised tenders, which we'll be talking later on, and giving chance to everyone, because when you are having a rate contract means it's a huge purchase, maybe many times hundreds of crores rupees are involved in that purchases. So that is why when you go for rate contracts, you have either government gives you the rate contract which are ready built, of course they have followed the same procedure, or you make your own rate contract by floating your open tenders and to go for that and say that normally they are annual. So these are the different type of rate contracts are there. We call them running rate contracts. There are fixed quantity rate contracts wherein when you can say that this is much, because in fixed quantity rate contract the rates are much lower. But I will not like to confuse you much at this stage. I will simply say a rate contract is created by organizations, or when you are talking of government at the government level, for particular items wherein you go for open tenders or advertised tender and put up your conditions in your tenders, as we will be talking, and whosoever are the people who are fulfilling all those tender conditions, you make them as who is the lowest, who is the next, and who is the next. Many of you might have heard of L1, L2, L3. So the rate contract is very clear in giving that whenever you have to purchase the item, there is a source, there is a item, there is the item gives you what are the constituents, it gives you a unit rate, and you can see that how much is your purchase, rather than once you have a rate contract, every time you have not to go for a method of purchasing. It is a ready-made contract for you. Then are certain preferential or mandatory purchases from this, especially in government, like government says buy from GEM, then the government says you give preference to small scale industries, then there may be certain things where you give for price preference, as we call that. If a government organization is giving you at 5%, 10%, just for your information, keep it in mind that there are certain things within the government departments where they say you buy from them and they may be a little higher rate also. And then of course there are many of the cooperatives and all that are there for consumables and all, especially dietary articles and all. So you normally go for purchases from them. Then you are organizations at the national, international level which give you certain projects and other things, or certain things to be done. So whatever they prescribe, we follow that. Same type of procedure. Now, very, very important for you to understand, as I use the word open tender, or what we call it advertised tender. That means when we are purchasing anything more than 25 lakh, our annual requirement, then we are to, as far as the government is concerned, and thus whatever we will talk in government, though the things can be, the quantum can be different in a private organization, but the philosophy remains the same.
Yeah.
Right. So whenever 25 lakh rupees and above annual purchase is to be required, you go for an open tender. What do we mean by an open tender? Just like the name suggests, that everybody is approachable to that tender. Anybody can take part in that tender. Then it is advertised in a journal, that is the Indian Trade Journal, and then of course in the national dailies. And today because we are into the e-tendering processes and all, so on the respective websites you give them tender. So there is, in simple words, this is available to all the people who want to participate, right, and all over the country. Then there is a limited tender inquiry, that is what called a limited tender, is for, as the name suggests, we have registered people with us as an organization. There is a definite way of registering the people with you for any article, and those registered persons with you, whosoever are there, whenever the purchases are between 25,000 to 25 lakhs, you will send them those maybe for single item there may be 15, 20, 40 people who are registered with you. There is a definite way of registering them. In simple words, you have a register with which you have certain condition for registration. They have fulfilled that and they are on your list whenever you will be tendering for a particular item which belongs to them, either by turn or all of them, whatsoever will be your demand at that time. You send them, but in this you have to have 3 competitive rates, right? That means those fulfilling all your conditions will be considered and you will have 3 competitive rates, and you will go for the lowest rate because it has already fulfilled all your other criteria. Then there is a single tender inquiry or the proprietorship item, where there is no other item, we simply take the rate on that day with all the terms and condition and all. There is the global tender or the international tender inquiries. That means that is where at the international level anybody can participate in that. And then there can be subsets of requirements as per many times open tender can be avoided, but there is some competent authority which can say many a time even for some item less than 25,000 you may go for open tender. So all those are the conditions depending on the nature of articles and all. I hope you are clear about the mode of purchase. That is very, very important. Or in simple words, just see that financial considerations are kept in mind when we are to buy the things, and we are very particular that a systematic procedure is followed.
Yeah, I think along with the buying item, while buying the item, they also need to keep in mind about the delivery of the item on which place, because the transportation cost is also one of the factor, time as well as transportations distance. So they may be buying something from the X place, but your hospital is at Y place. So within the tender, it need to be mentioned that all this item from X place to be Y place need to be transported by the vendor. And many places in the quality process also, once the things reach, they check the quality, particularly about these things. So I think those processes also need to be followed while they are purchasing some kind of material.
Right. Once we are entering into rate contracts, most of the time what we call as, they are called FOR destination. Whether you are getting from UP or you are getting from Kerala, the same rate will remain.
Yeah.
So that is called FOR. And then there are other systems where, especially when you are indulging in imports and all, where you say that free on board or free on ship or free on port, or there are so many, components which are there. So this is one thing in the rate contract. Everything depends on what you have given in the text of tender. Tender is the document which you should think of, at that time, brainstorming process. What can be there? What good, bad, everything can be there.
All the terms and conditions.
All terms and conditions, because anything which you have not put in the tender conditions, you cannot contest later on.
Yeah.
Right. So this is just, I would advise my students to go through, wherever they are working on, or go to any of the hospital or any other industry and see the
I think in the newspaper also frequently many tenders are coming out. Beside
go by those advertisements.
Yeah. Beside there are some website link also they have given. So I think they need to study all these tender things. That will give them much more clear picture.
Yes. So text of tender is one thing which contains everything you want, whether it is specifications, what will be the quantity, as you said, what will your period and terms of delivery, right? Then of course place and timing of the sale of document, from where can they get the document, and if it is on e-tendering, then how it will be followed. Then of course there is given a deadline. The tender will be opened tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Then that 12 o'clock means you will write also that the tender will be received till 10 o'clock. Any tender coming after 10 o'clock will be invalid tender. Like that, anything you can think of. And then very, very important to understand is that one thing, earnest money. There are two things which all of you must know. One is earnest money, another is security money, or what we call as performance deposits. What do we mean by earnest money is, all of you can think of, if I want to take as I said, you send it to your registered people, because they have already deposited some money with you, and that is they have an earnest desire to be in competition. So anybody who is coming into competition has to give a check or a, in any form. He has to say that this money which we keep is generally 1 to 5%, that he will have to give us a guarantee for that, depending on the amount of money, or normally still the checks are being given or whatever it may be, because they are also returned later on, most of them. So that is why we are getting it. So that is earnest money or participation money. The person who will be selected, he will have to deposit the security money. So, or the bid security as we call it. So this is this is two things which you should keep in mind. Format of tender, as rightly pointed out by that you should try to see. Then there are sealed tenders are invited. Then the tenders are opened. If there is a late tender, are not considered. Anything, when the tenders are opened, there are responsible officers. They go through all the documents, and the helping person keeps on checking whatever are the checklists which are available, and any of the point which is not being fulfilled, it will become a non-responsive tender. Right. So once theirs have been opened, then there will be a statement, comparative statement as you call it. Then ultimately they will decide who is to get the tender out of who is filling all the conditions. So we may follow e-procurement, we may go through the process of advertising, we may go for other type of system which we have been discussing. Then of course there is another system which is the most prevalent, is two-bid system. Why we call two-bid system is that, especially when we are talking of medical purchases, and especially in equipment purchases and scientific purchases, what happens, the technical details are many times very sensitive, and these are the technical people only who can decide what are the things which are fulfilling them. So in simple words, we go for a two-bid system where one bid is technical, another is financial bid. Technical bid contains all things, all that specifications and everything which you are given in your tender conditions, and then is the financial bid. When we open it, only a technical bid will be open, and it will be given to a committee, the technical committee. Once let us say out of the 10 or 12 bids, once they say these are 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, whatever are the numbers, that these are the ones who are responsive bids in our language, then we open after it has been decided, we open the financial bid. So out of that, whosoever is the lowest, because it is already fulfilling all your quality, quantity, and technical considerations, so whichsoever is the lower, that we accept. So two-bid system, I would request all of you to read it again and again, and go through some of the examples, and you will be more clear. Then another thing very, very important from the point of view of this tendering and all is that we should be very, when we are entering into rate contracts especially, we should give very stringent conditions. Stringent does not mean that they cannot be followed by anyone. They should be like for quality what you want. There is some certification like the WHO GMP certificate. That is a DGQI, that is DGQA, that is the quality assurance certificate. You want a company to be in the market for a longer time, because what we call as persons who have been established just 3 months, 6 months may not be night flyers, what we call it. So these are some of the things, and then we want to see turnover clause, means I will deal with only, as I said, you deal with many times 100 crores of business. So I'll see that the annual turnover of that company is 100 crore, 20 crore, 30 crores, depending on the nature of my ultimately. Now one thing again which comes, you will be seeing the last, is negotiation clause. In government, negotiations is not followed. It is forbidden. Only you can negotiate with the lowest if it fulfills all. Whereas negotiation clause and negotiations are very common in private sector. right? In fact, I have been involved both in the government as well as in the private sector, whereas we were not much, never calling for negotiation in the government, but here we were very much concerned in the private sector. Now, I'll simply go within 5-7 minutes to talk about. There are, once you have given a purchase order contains the things which you want. Thereafter, things will be reaching you. The moment the things reach you, there is a definite place where you load them. Thereafter, you inspect them. That is after this receiving is there. Then we make a note which we call as inspection note or good receipt note, which is very, very important. At that time, you are doing, all type of inspections in terms of physical inspections mainly. That is, what is the condition, whether on that whatever you had given, does it match the purchase order or not? Everything you want to see. Once you have made because good receipt note is to be made by a responsible person, because after the good receipt note, one side will be finance payment, another side will be it goes to the warehouse or storage. From storage, you have to think of what is the type of storage, because within the materials you have the cold conditions, you have the certain conditions like for storage of vaccines, they may be at different temperature. Then there is a cool storage that means up to 24 degree only, then normal. So whatever are the zones, we keep them accordingly. From there we have a distribution method. So then once these are distributed, they are consumed. So there are definite documents which we have been talking. Once you have to make that payment, you know that finance is very clear that you give them the documents right from whatever was started, and these are some of the documents which may be required. Let me come to another very, very important thing, is the inventory control. Let me just say, if we buy much more than required, what will happen? And if we don't buy the appropriate thing, what will happen? So if we buy more than required, what is happening is that we are blocking our funds unnecessarily. Second is, we need more space. The moment we need more space, we need more records. We need more maintenance of that space. There are more chances of expiry, more chances of pilferage, more chances of spoilage. Now, you just think of, there are so many costs that are associated with that. So we are very clear that when to buy and how much to buy is the thing, that you should not fall short of supplies, but at the same time you should not have more than required all the time, and which is, we call the blocked inventory lying most of the time, which is the idle, and we don't want to be idle at all. Now here are the various costs that are involved in, as I was talking, it may be, you have more manpower, you have more records, more management procedure. So in simple words, there are pilferage, wastage, obsolescence, expiry, all things are more common if you have too much of inventories. And let me tell you, if you have too much inventory, then unnecessarily usage also goes up, right? So we have to be very clear about over inventories. Similarly, at the other side is that we can't have lesser inventories, because if we don't have the required things, sometimes it may be very, very vital or critical at that time, and you may lose your patient or some complication may occur, or there may be, you have to buy from market, which will be at a much higher cost. Here I'll just go through some of the things, not everything. Let me make you understand. Lead time is when we put a purchase order and when we receive the supply, that is the supply time, which is we call it as a lead time. Both sides we call it as administrative lead time. In between is the supplier lead time. What do we mean by administrative lead time? Means how much time, when did you get the requisition and when did you place the purchase order. That is administrative lead time. Then on the other hand, you have received supplies, but you have not inspected and put in storage. So both sides, this is lead time. Let me say my daily consumption is 500 for any item, and my lead time is 500, 30 days. So at what level I should see that I will not be out of stock, I will multiply 500 by 30 to see at 15,000 stock I will place another order. But within medical side, as we know that we said that it is very difficult to predict what will be the actual supply or actual usage. So we try to see these 30 days, what was the maximum use of a particular day. Let me just say theoretically that on some of the days that use was 600. So what I do conventionally at everywhere, that I presume that this 600 can be every day. So I would, instead of that, means when I have to make another supply order, that will be 600 multiplied by 30, that will come to 18,000. I hope you are understanding, most of you, that what can be my maximum usage on that day, what is my average usage. So the difference between maximum usage minus average usage multiplied by lead time is your safety stock or buffer stock, as we call it. So, and in my example which I have given you, when I said 18,000 and 15,000, so 3,000 has become my buffer stock or safety stock. Then there are certain analyses which we use in our day-to-day things. They are ABC, VED, SDF, and I'll be more concentrating on ABC, VED. What do you mean by ABC, VED? When we try to look at the annual consumption in terms of rupee value of a particular item, we will generally find that there are few items which are consuming most of our budget.
I think, sir, we have a slide on this ABC analysis.
Yes.
Subsequently, we have a slide on this.
Yes, that is on
the same
this.
Yeah.
So you will see that there are few items which are taking most of your budget, right? And when these items, when we see on the annual basis, these items which are spending the most of your budget, and as we normal language say, 10% of the items take away our 70% of the budget. 10% is not a sacrosanct figure. It can be 15%, 12%, 8%, whatever it may be. In general means few items are taking most of our budget, where there are large number of items which take just 10% of our budget. The items which are consuming our most budget is the A item, whereas another is the which is not consuming our budget is the C item. In between 20% are the items which are consuming 20% of our budget. We call it B items. Now, to make you understand how we do it, we go for their annual use. We make those, this, what was the item, what was the quantity used, what was unit price, what was the total annual cost. And then ultimately we arrange them in a descending order, and then we go into the cumulative cost, and we will see at about the usage of cumulative cost, that is 70% of the budget, I will see that only 10% or 15% of the items are there. Now, be very clear, these items are not high cost item. Be very clear. High cost item we call as HML. Unit cost is not high. It is the high consumption which is making them very high, and that is why, we have to have different type of controls on A items, B items and C items. So when I am concerned as a medical student for, going for physical verification, and I'll go for A item, physical verification. So when you go through this chart, you will find in simple words all type of controls, the scientific control which we follow in terms of ordering, in terms of follow-up, in terms of safety stock, value analysis and all these are maximum on A items, whereas minimum on C items. So this is from the cost point of view. But another is what we call as VED analysis. Medical side is more concerned about what are the vital item, essential item, desirable item. What do we mean by vital items? It is so critical that in case it is not there, person may die or he may get complication, or it is required at that time. I can't wait. In simple words, as a medical person, I'll say where we can't wait for availability, we can't waste any time, they are called vital items. Your oxygens, IV fluids, IV injections, most of them, like IV antibiotics. All these are the vital things because they are to save the person.
Like
then, of
drugs,
course, when you go to
for
some
this
dispensary,
MI, like drugs for MI and
yes,
all other things.
all drugs for micro infarction, and when you go to that any of the emergency, you see there is an emergency tray. In that, there are decodron, atropine, this and that. Those are the drugs anybody comes and says because they are vital. Essential items are for treatment purposes, right? As per your diagnosis, you require your things. They may be any type of thing, whether it is antihypertensive, it is anti-diabetic, it is antibiotics, it is whatever it may be, because that is going to take care of your treatment. Desirable items are just sportive treatment. These tonics, certain type of food supplements, all these are desirable. In fact, if you ask me, being a medical man, some of these even these expectorants, until they are bronchodilators, all these cough syrups have hardly any role, whereas they are very expensive. We don't have time to hear, but we have done a lot of studies in stores at the state levels, and we find that desirable items are consuming a lot of budget. So we have to be very clear to see if we want to be good administrator and good purchase manager or good store manager as well, you may say, we should, and I have been, wherever I was doing two analysis, that is ABC and VED combined analysis. The moment you look at that, you will come out with 9 compartments. Out of these compartments, you have to be very clear. AV is the compartment which is one which you can't compromise at all at any stage. Whereas there is one compartment AD which is just consuming your budget, and you can maybe many times you can reduce it to 10% of the items. Right. So whenever we do these analysis and put them into 9 compartments, we are very clear to categorize our item, which is the most important, which is the least important. And let us say that to save our budget, when I am concerned with the budgetary process, I will go for knocking down the AD items. So similarly, I will go for each and every item individually. Right, AV column, AE column, AD item, and see that what is there, and ensure that, let me tell you, because this is something which we have practiced. I was a manager in stores long back, and then by applying this ABC VED, we brought down the 600 items to 324. Right, cutting down, like I don't need 20 antibiotics, I don't need 25 I need 10 antibiotics. Again, looking into all this. So if I need anything extra, I'll go for culture sensitivity.
Yeah, perhaps the issue is like the same cefotaxime having different generations. So people may prefer to start writing from the generation 1 to generation 4. The same kind of like the ampicillin, and every drug has its own different generation. So we may focus on, like as you said, we may not need like 10 different antibiotics. Maybe with 4 also things can be much better manageable.
Yes. I'm talking of our central stores which was supplying.
Yeah.
So it really cut down from almost 24 types to 10 types. Right? Because different people wanting different preferences, as you said. Okay. So I hope ABC VED is the crux for cost containment and making things available as they are required. And then there are other analysis, but one important which I will say, fast moving, slow moving, non-moving. This we have to be very particular that because when we are doing this, this forecasting and all, there is then fast moving and non-moving items especially have to be kept in mind, and accordingly they have to be projected for annual budgets. Then of course high cost, low cost, scarcely available, difficultly available. These are other type of analysis which are side analysis, and these days everything is available in all seasons actually, but these may be useful at a smaller places.
Yeah,
EOQ
the
is
geographical area need
Yes.
to be considered, because some part of the northeastern region where things are taking much longer time, and so many things may not be available compared to Delhi. So they may consider those kind of things depending upon their geographical location.
true, because if they are not easily available, they have to have the stocks. So then, of course, EOQ is a economic ordering quantity. This is just like one cost. This ordering cost increases, the inventory carrying cost becomes more. So they are opposite costs. Where do the balance we call as EOQ? There is a formula that is 2RS by IC as under root, but this is EOQ formula is much more applicable in engineering industries, but we do make use of EOQs in health services also. Then, of course, are the use of computers and other thing, and prevention of pilferage and all. They are also very important from the point of view of inventory, because let me tell you, because in some of the places we have found the incidence of pilferage to the extent of 20 to 30%. So you can just think of, because of paucity of time, I am not going to talk about pilferage per se, but we should be very clear to have those terms and conditions with us, wherein we are particular that nothing goes out of our stores or it is pilfered by our. Then you can have any other combinations also. There is another way of thinking. People say, do we have to have inventory at all? I always say that I don't have inventory, so he will have to have inventory. So that way, there are concepts like just in time and there is stockless purchasing and all. Of course, stockless purchasing as far as medical side is concerned is almost not possible at all, right? Because you have to have your vital and some of the essential drugs all the time available. But at the same time, yes, the concepts are very much in use that let it be the third party which will supply. Let's be very clear that we don't make inventory, but let you go through this. But at the same time, remember that if you are not maintaining inventory, somebody else is maintaining, the concepts will remain the same. So it reduces costs, improves delivery. We are very clear on return on investment, services increase, efficiency of man, machine and everything. So ultimately goodwill of the patient, and within the same budgets we are able to see. There are indirect other ways: codification, standardization, value analysis. Codification means, I'll just make you understand. There was one item in engineering industry which had 108 names all over the world. So to avoid that, there is a system of codification which talks of a particular, just like you have a barcode, you have your PAN card, Aadhaar card. All these are the systems of codification. Codification, when we talk in our system, any organization should devise its own codification. But once devised, it has to be followed. It may be sequential, it may be non-sequential, it may be as per blocks, it may be, these bar systems, 10 digits, like you say, this is for human being, this is for animals. First two bars are for that. Then second 2 bars are for what system it belongs to. Third 2 bars are what organ it belongs to. Like that, you can think of those classification which is in the codification, and we are extensively using codification systems, and but they should be simple and unique and all, because they, like earlier we were sending our indents to medical stores, we use VMS number. They give VMS number. I'm not sure, but let me say if I read 35 means something like wool. So that is understandable between people. So these are objectives of codification: to avoid duplication, good identification, better understanding. Spellings can be wrong with other people, and ultimately also standardization. All of today we are after standards, quality and whatnot, and with all of you insist on this should be BIS, this should be this standard.
I think this kind of practice often we observe in a diagnostic process.
Yes.
For example, doing some kind of test, they will directly go to the code. They will not search into this. So once they put into code, everything follow it. So that kind of spelling mistake or keep searching those things are easily manageable. So I think all the managers, they need to be implement those things for the much efficient purpose.
So I think all of you are very much people called it, I called it now. Bureau of Indian Standard is there, and in simple terms, there are definite ways to standardize items, and our Bureau of Indian Standards, is giving uniform standards, and we in our country want that anything and everything should be ultimately standardized through our BIS. And of course, if it is not there so far, then we follow whatever are the standards of ISO at the international level and all. So in other words, all of you know about standardization, and you can see that our standard value analysis is something that anything which we have done, does it really should be like that? Should I use glass? Should I use wood? Should I use other material? So there are design analysis and cost analysis. Does the design, in simple words, I want my functional analysis. And where can I reduce costs? You might see, the type of, things which we have been using in our kitchens and all. They have undergone a total change over a period.
Maybe buying a phone for all staffs. Yes. Like whether is it mandatory to buy iPhone or even a different kind of Android phone will also work. So in this context, I think they need to be looked into. In the same way, like for the medicine also, there are lots of generic options are available, branded medicines.
Generic versus trade and all that.
They need to work on depending upon the requirement of that particular place.
So very good example of giving phones, you have just said it. Functional requirement you need. Then how much is the cost difference? So then there are number of legalities, regulations and all. I'll simply here say there is a Central Drug Standard Control Organization, and there is a Drug and Cosmetic Act with modifications from time to time, and they are the virtual instruments to control everything in the country. And then there is but unfortunately only thing is pricing control is not with the health department. It is, national NPPA, there is a national pharmaceutical which is under the pricing agency, is under the Ministry of Commerce. Right. So, but it is not haphazard, especially for, essential medicines and all. There is a definite system of giving pricing. So when it comes to legality, regulations and all, I am more concerned about, of course, the third thing which we are concerned is narcotics. And all of you know now we have a Psychotropic Narcotics and Psychotropic Drug Act 1985, and where the powers have been given to the field officers even to arrest once they are catching somebody. Ethics, all of you know, we should not be tempted by money and we should have good morality. We should be, right in the beginning I talked of transparency, use of money and accountability, and then of course all these are the good behavioral things, moral things which are required to be there. Material management performance is the last thing which you have to think of, where you try to see that when I do my vendor rating, especially when you are thinking of, were the people consistent in supplying? Were the people always late? Were they making partial supplies? Were they responding to whenever I am asking? Are they always quoting much more than required? How are my relationship with them? So all these are the things where you can make your own indices.
Sometimes the vendor may be saying, okay, if you are buying 10, we are giving you 100. But if you buy 200, we will give you in 12 rupees.
Yes.
So this kind of temptations may often lead to the difficult situations for even managers. So
yes.
I think all these things are very important to look into.
Very good. So we have to be very clear that we do our own vendor rating depending on a number of criteria, whether they were sticking to lifetime, were they good in their supplies and all. And finally conclusion is, it is very important, material management should be professionally managed. Yeah.
So thank you, sir, for discussing such a huge topic within the particularly 1 hour time. And in this material management, we have initially learned what are the different kind of materials for the healthcare institutions, and subsequently we learn about the tendering process and the different kind of tendering and how we should go about, because this is the initial phase when we work on the particularly how to manage the material. Then subsequently, when the material arrived in the hospitals, we have a different kind of inventory control, like particularly ABC and BD, which is very important, and I think all of you must do it on regular basis on your day-to-day hospital. Even today also you can go and do it. And subsequently the different other dimensions like Pharmaceutical Act, different Narcotic Act, and good moral standing, ethical values, and subsequently at the end, if you are with the good intentions, following all the principles and thinking for the better service, I hope you can come up with the solutions without violating any rules and regulations, and in a much more cost-effective and time-effective way. I hope this session is very much useful for all of you, and thank you very much for viewing us. And I would like to say thanks once again to Dr. Ake Kokkar for taking your time and delivering this lecture. And I also would like to say thanks to the team of EMPC who is helping us to broadcast this program. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
My
Namaskar.
sincere thanks to all of you.